Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts plays film roulette. I am one of your hosts, Chris Waterman from Jacksonville, Florida, joined, as always, by May Finch, also from Jacksonville.
Hey, guys.
We also have Will Rotondi from Greenville, South Carolina.
Hey, what's going on?
And our very first and very special guest, Jorge Arevalo from Miami, Florida. Welcome, George.
What's going on? What's up?
You watched last week's episode. You were introduced to George briefly at the end when we drew our main quest for this episode, which is Snakes on a Plane. Our prompt, of course, was camp or cringe. So we'll be getting into that a little bit later on the show. We'll also be drawing a side quest. And since George is the guest of honor, I'm going to make him go for that side quest. So get ready for a little spontaneous action, George. We'll walk you through that when the time comes. But first, I hate that we have to do this 2 episodes in a row, but we are going to start off with a little bit of a somber note here. And we'll call it a celebration, but also in memoriam for Nichelle Nichols, who just passed away as of this recording today, so July 31st. Very sad day. If you're a Trekkie, she played, of course, Lieutenant Uhura in the original series of Star Trek, of course, a number of Star Trek films as well. So very, very sad. Rest in peace, Nichelle Nichols. I have many fond memories. Super iconic, one of the first Black women to star in like a starring role, I think, like in the 60s, and specifically like I think I don't know if this is true or not, but credited as having like one of the first like interracial kisses on television in Star Trek the original series, which is a big deal.
Yeah, it was the first like mouth to mouth interracial kiss. But she's something I realized only recently is she's also a trailblazer in that after leaving Star Trek, she went on to work with NASA.
Mm-hmm.
And she started this recruitment program for women and minorities. And she's kind of the reason that we had Dr. Sally Ride as like the first female astronaut, and Guion Bluford as the first African-American astronaut. So that's pretty cool. She took her work on the screen and took it to NASA.
It's amazing. It seems like something that like, could easily be construed as like tongue in cheek with how many of the Star Trek stars like worked really like closely like in space exploration type stuff, but they like were really passionate about it. I know James Doohan, I think when he passed away, like has some of his remains in outer space, like the guy that played Lieutenant Scott. So yeah.
Never seen a single Star Trek episode or movie. I know, shame on me, but yeah, so I honestly didn't know who she was, but I can relate to like a lot of like, childhood heroes I've been passing recently in the past couple of years. As you get older, that stuff starts to become more normal, and it still sucks, even though it seems like she lived a long life. Still, it's sad when you see like a little piece of your childhood or history is gone.
Absolutely. They vary in quality as far as the movies go, so that's okay. If you ever want like a little crash course, like abbreviated version, I'm sure all 3 of us main hosts could steer you towards some of the better ones, because there's a lot. But
I mean, she was an extraordinary woman and an extraordinary actor, and I don't think I could do her justice in any sort of any capacity right now. It's just really shocking to have it be so sudden. But yeah, she'll definitely be missed. She was wonderful.
Really funny, like too, like the one of the things that stands out to me, the Futurama episode where they had like all of the heads in jars, and they have the great fake out where they're like and now somebody like who has the sexiest voice to like narrate this, and like the camera is like on Nichelle Nichols, and then it like quickly pivots to George Takei, and he's like, well, let me tell you. It's just a great little fake out, and she like kind of glares at him, in cartoon form, of course, but like yeah. Well, R.I.P. Nichelle Nichols. You did live an awesome life, and one of the coolest characters ever in sci-fi history. So you will be missed. All right. So with that, let's pivot to a side quest. So George, I don't know how familiar you are with the podcast format. In addition to talking about Snakes on a Plane today, we always draw a side quest, and one of us will pick a film that like fits in with the topic. And don't worry, we can cut around this if you need some time to think. Sometimes we do, depending on the topic. So I'm going to read out the topic to you, and then you can pick any film you want and just kind of talk about how it fits with the topic. And I think you'll kind of see what I'm talking about once I draw the card. So
Okay.
giving these a little shuffle. And here we go. All right. So this will be an easy one. I think this is a softball. So it's going to be a neuralizer. Neuralizer is such: pick a film that you wish you could forget and experience for the first time all over again. I think that's a pretty easy one. I mean, again, you can take some time to think about it, but
I'm kind of between two. So I'm just gonna use both since it was an easy one.
Sure.
For me, it's the easy one is Star Wars: A New Hope, because that just opened like a lot of things for me. Watching that as a kid, it's like basically created a whole new world, galaxy, right? All that whole thing. It's just everything that's come of it. It's hard to downplay the impact it's had on my life. And I'm obviously a huge Star Wars nerd. And being able to see that for the first time and see what would come after it, because obviously that movie isn't my favorite, but what it laid the groundwork for, being able to experience all of that again for the first time would be amazing. And because I'm seeing this with some of my friends now that Star Wars has become more mainstream with the popularity of this, like for example, The Mandalorian brought in a ton of friends of mine that had never cared to see Star Wars, and now they're all into it. So seeing how like them asking me questions and getting all into it, like I wish I was going through that right now. I wish I wasn't already like expecting certain things and fact checking things that the shows do. So being able to just experience Star Wars for the very first time would be awesome. And then the other one, which I won't go too into, but Shawshank Redemption. That would be definitely a movie that I would want to see again for the first time, because I just feel like it's one of my favorite movies and just like amazing from start to finish. And I feel like that movie holds up well. It would be a great movie to watch right now for the very first time. So, but yeah, two different reasons, but those are the two that I would go with.
both good picks, especially Star Wars, because like I'm assuming in this hypothetical scenario you would erase like all of the Star Wars canon, not just that one from your brain.
Yeah. Mari, I would take it a step further. It means like I don't know anything about Star Wars if we begin with that one. So
yeah, that would be awesome. I told you the story about like so I had like my first experience with that was a VHS from like an ABC broadcast of that, so like with commercials and everything. And I lived like a good 6 or 7 years of my life like thinking like that was like the only Star Wars film, like not knowing that there was an Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And so when my mom like remarried and was dating like my stepdad Joe, who you've met before, we were at my grandmother's house in New York, and she had like 10 VHSs, like, which, like when you're a child and you've got like Disney movies and all that stuff, like seems like not a whole lot. And one of them was The Empire Strikes Back, and it didn't have a cover or anything. So it was just like a loose VHS, or like maybe in like one of those like, extra little like plastic cases that you used to be able to buy. And Joe's like offhandedly like, oh, The Empire Strikes Back, that's like probably the best Star Wars movie. And I was like, excuse me, like what did you just say? And he was like yeah, he's like, it's the second Star Wars movie. I was like, he's like, there's three of them, this is the second one. And I like, dude, it blew my mind. We watched it and I was so excited. And Joe, being the guy that he was, like immediately like drove to like the video store, like we were on vacation, and like rented Return of the Jedi for me. It was like, well, now you've got to like see how it all plays out. So I kind of know what that excitement is like a little bit, like because that's all I had was A New Hope. So just like even at that point, prequels, like having two other movies felt like the biggest treasure trove of like extra world building. And because you could see as a kid, like the ending of A New Hope seems pretty self-contained, right? They get the Death Star blows up, they get their medals. It seems like pretty final, right? Like I think it's an awesome pick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I think the way that I got exposed to Star Wars was actually by the Super Nintendo games. Because they had one for each of the movies, and I remember playing the first one. It was very hard, really difficult. It was like super hard. and then it was my cousins who had the Super Nintendo, and then they ended up grabbing the VHSs and showing me, and then from there we just got obsessed. I remember going to see this prequel trilogies all like at midnight back in the day, like when you actually had to go at midnight. It wasn't like they weren't starting at 6 in the afternoon like they do now, but you like legit had to go at midnight. And I remember the theaters had like whole like they had people come out in costumes and like perform before the movie started. Like there was like Darth Maul, and like, which is funny because like we hadn't seen the movie yet. We had just seen trailers and stuff, but they were just there like performing and having a whole little show before the actual movie started. It was like a whole thing. And I mean, I'm sure some of you guys might remember just making lines for movies. Now you can just reserve a seat, but that was just madness. It was like, I don't know. It was crazy going to
Oh no,
midnight
it was
for
awful.
me.
You had to show up at like 9 p.m. like if you wanted a decent
I mean, it
seat.
was
Like,
awful now, but like back then it was exciting. It was like, oh, I'm going to be
Yeah.
the first to see this, because there wasn't social media, the internet, where you like you'd have it spoiled. Like legit being one of the first people to see it was like a big deal, and being able to talk about it the next day at school or something. Like just all of that. A lot came with Star Wars that doesn't even have anything to do with the movie itself, but being able to go through that again would be awesome.
Will, like I know like you're like roughly the same age as us. Did you go through like the same kind of craze like with Star Wars, like in particular like the prequels? Do you remember going to see like those in theater, and were you part of that excitement, or was it kind of like for you?
Well, I definitely grew up in loving Star Wars as a kid. So the original trilogy. And when the prequels came out, there had already been a lot of hype for Star Wars because they did the special edition for each of the original films to re-release those before they went through and did episode 1, 2, and 3. And so I remember the big hype for that back in grade school and thinking that was really cool with all the extra special effects. And then and unfortunately, I just remember also being very disappointed in in the prequel movies when they came out, and thinking this is not the same Star Wars that I remember. Which arguably I still think in retrospect they're better than some of what's come since then too, but that's a whole other conversation for later. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're good in their own right for what they were. I think they're much more, and I mean, even Lucas mentioned when they came out they were geared toward children, so it's like, I mean, he kind of told you what what to expect with that. But I just remember I wasn't really too thrilled about the prequel movies, but the original ones will always hold a special place in my heart. And if we can ever get the unspecial edition version of those, the original version just maybe a little bit cleaned up from how old they are, if they're locked away in some Disney vault somewhere, that would be nice. But not really
I
holding
do
out on
have
that
them on
anymore.
DVD. Like they had it, like if you bought the special edition DVD, like when Star Wars first came to DVD, like the second disc had the original like undoctored like versions.
Yeah.
But like I remember they didn't look as good. Like you could tell like the remastering, and like the TLC wasn't there. So I'm with you. Like clean it up, make it look as good, put it in 4K, and like drop that on Disney Plus. I bet you'd get some new subscribers, even if it was just for a month, to be able to watch those.
It's true.
And Will, I can defend your prequel opinion. As someone who was a child when they came out, I remember growing up on the original series, being completely obsessed with those first 3 movies, watching them all the time with my brothers. Going to see, I think I got the first one with Darth Maul like on VHS, but I went to go see the Clone Wars in theater. I fell asleep halfway through.
Nice. Wow. That's impressive.
It was not kid friendly.
You mean politics and trade negotiations and all that stuff? Yeah. I wasn't as down on them as some people. Like I was definitely disappointed. Like to say that you weren't a little disappointed, I feel like you not entirely true if you were a huge Star Wars fan, but like I tried to always see the good. Like all of them had really good sequences at some point or another. Like I mean, the Darth Maul, like Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan fight, I don't care what you think about the rest of that movie. It's amazing.
It's my favorite.
Yeah,
I mean,
the music's
it's
amazing. Yeah.
The soundtrack's of course good. So I think there was good in all of them. But yeah, The pod racing was cool.
I felt like that movie was tailored for me. I was a child. I mean, what the first one came out, what, 99, right? Phantom Menace was like 99 or so. So
That sounds about right.
I was 10,
Mhm.
and then what, a couple years later, so between me being 10 to 16 years old is when those movies came out for me. So I have fond memories. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed them all, and even the whatever. I guess we won't talk about the sequel trilogies because I think those are, even if you love the prequels, I feel like everyone can come together and be down on those. But I've always been of the opinion that, like, I'll take at Star Wars is better than no Star Wars. I'll take whatever. It's all fun. You know, I love all of it, even though some of it's very questionable. But
well,
excellent.
I love that answer, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that answer. Great choice for a neuralizer, and it's I think our first neuralizer at that. So well done. So now we're gonna transition over to some motherfucking snakes on some motherfucking planes, or really one plane. So our prompt from last week, it was camp or cringe. And for our audience members who may need a refresher, camp is essentially a self-aware type of like over-exaggerated style. Like think Rocky Horror Picture Show. I would say like you could probably argue The Room is camp if you believe Tommy Wiseau's retroactive claims that he like made it as like a comedy. Like I don't know that I buy that, but sure. So yeah, camp is very much like a self-aware, over-exaggerated style of filmmaking that results in humor. Cringe obviously is going to be a little more subjective for what that is to you, but I think we all kind of know what cringe is. So what's cringe to you and somebody else might be completely different. So we're gonna now talk and debate on whether we think Snakes on a Plane is camp or cringe. Before we get into that actual debate, I do want to go around and get impressions from everybody, like always. George, since you're our guest of honor, I'm going to start with you. Just give me some initial impressions of what did you make on Snakes on a Plane?
I'd never seen this movie before. Obviously I saw the memes. How could you not? I mean, I love Sam Jackson, so I mean, I'll watch anything that he's in, no matter how bad. But I don't know. This movie is all over the place for me. There are some moments where I'm like, are they taking themselves seriously? And then there's some moments where I'm like, there's no way they can, right? There's no way they are. But I flip flop whether the movie's trying to be serious or not, because some parts, geez, I don't know. I don't think it's aged well, but then in some ways it has. I don't know. Like I don't even know how to describe it, because if you look at it as like a stupid movie, then you could still enjoy it today. But if that movie is trying to be serious in any sense of the word, then no, it doesn't. There's a lot of stuff that wouldn't fly today in that movie, I don't think. But yeah, it was a wild ride. I was entertained. So I guess if that was the intention of the movie, then it succeeded.
Great. Will, how about you?
Oh, it's like campy Die Hard on a plane, man. It's great. No, I do remember watching this movie back in, like, I was in college, I think, because a buddy of mine, during summer break, we would hang out and watch like action movies, and this definitely came up as one of those where we were like, all right, we have to watch this film. And I'm pretty sure we made like a list of like the 100 reasons why Snakes on a Plane is like the most ridiculous film of all time. If I could find it, I will definitely share it. But yeah, it was so much fun. This was stupid fun to have. And I think going into it, I knew I had no reservations that they were not taking themselves seriously, and that it was just supposed to be a bunch of like ridiculous fun and an over the top concept, and they were gonna go with it and double down, and that was what I felt like I watched. And I feel like there was something else too about it, that it was, I felt like it was taking a lot of, I guess, some of the tropes from action movies that we come to expect. So that's why, to me, to a certain extent, it felt kind of like Die Hard, where it's got a little bit of weird humor in there that it tries to throw in. It's got the action, but at the same time, it's so ridiculous as well that you can't completely take it seriously. And there was one other thing too that I'll have to come back and think about later, but that came to mind and it's lost now. But yeah, just watching this and thinking Samuel L. Jackson is the only person that I could imagine in that role who would actually make this film work, because he has to be the straight guy. He has to be the straight character in that sense, while everybody else is being over the top and ridiculous. He has to be like that grounded force within the story to move it along. And so it was like, yeah, of course, he's the one person who could do this. He can be in any sort of ridiculous movie and do that. So it was great. I loved it.
And May, how about you?
I have to agree that it did seem like it was waffling between trying to be serious and just abandoning that entirely. Especially when you would have a very gratuitous, like, comic book death for some random character. And then there'd be another character that we really don't know any more about and hasn't really had any more screen time, where everyone's so upset about them dying. Like, for instance, like Samuel L. Jackson, his like FBI partner dying. I'm like, why do I care about this guy? He's been on screen for a few minutes. Versus like the lady who got her eye eaten or something like that, right?
Ew,
So
yeah.
it's like that part was the most jarring for me, I think, is just like the deaths that we're supposed to care about or whatever didn't really make sense, is like why they weren't also just like comic book gratuitous deaths. Besides that, like the most redeeming aspect of this movie is just the fact that it is so aggressively mid 2000s. It just it feels like this little time capsule in a plane. So like that part's kind of cool, just like feeling like I am truly in that era again. And yeah, there were some points that were uncomfortable to watch, that did not age well, but the more I sipped on my drink, the better it got. So that's my final review.
Yeah, the first time I saw this, like I had just gone through like so I missed this like in theaters like completely, and like even home video. And I was going through like a really hard like breakup, and if you've ever gone through a hard breakup, like there's like a period where like you just kind of like go from being like sad all the time to just numb, like where you're just like, man, I just want to feel like something. And so I fired this bad boy up, and I was by myself, and it did not disappoint. Like it was like the first time I had felt like I had laughed in probably like 2 months, and it gave me everything that it promised in the title and sort of like the premise itself. So I have a fond place in my heart for that reason alone. But I love ridiculous movies like with ridiculous plots, especially where at least there's like some self-awareness like involved, and I think this definitely does have some self-awareness. I think if there's any doubt in your mind on like whether or not they're aware, like the tit bite and the dick bite with the snakes,
That's
like
what I was
those two
thinking.
things like are pretty clearly I think firmly, like I should say, like on the side of like, yeah, like they know what they're doing here. You're allowed to laugh, in other words. Like if you're in the theater going like, wait, am I supposed to like consider this like a tragic action movie, or like can I laugh? And it's like, yes, you can laugh. Like obviously.
Those two things are the stuff that made me think it's not taking itself seriously. But then when Sam Jackson's telling the witness, he's like, but if you die, this will all be for nothing and stuff like that. Like it's
Yeah.
dude. Like, you know, like stuff like that. Or when they bring in the snake expert to help them with the, like, I don't know, like what were they gonna do with all the anti-venom at that point? The people are already dead. You know, you're only saving a couple people, but yeah, I don't know. But yes, those kind of things make me think that they are like just messing around. But
Sure. So for those of you who have not seen this film, I guess I should probably summarize the plot before we get into like the particulars. It's pretty straightforward. So Sean Jones is a surfer bro from Hawaii who's just out having a good time riding his dirt bike, and he witnesses the murder of a prosecutor at the hands of the nefarious Eddie Kim via a baseball bat. He is subsequently rescued by Samuel L. Jackson's character, Neville Flynn, and is being escorted from from Hawaii to Los Angeles they have essentially rented out first class, which was like one of the plot points. I was like, okay, sure. Oh, I know he's like in witness protection. Meanwhile, Eddie Cam manages to track down what plane he's going to be on, fills it with venomous snakes in a time release crate, and sabotages the plane by spraying down pheromones all over the allays that are given to passengers as they board the plane. The time release crate opens up and all hell breaks loose. I think that's pretty much all you need to know about the particulars of the story. If you want more details, I suggest you watch the film. I'm sure we'll cover a lot of ground as we get into the camper cringe part here. Yeah, the characters are all largely like a supporting cast of like people of various like fame, fortune, or like archetypes. So you have like the honeymooning couple, you've got like the famous hip-hop artist, and then you just have kind of like fodder for the snakes to basically eat. So like there's a whole spectrum. Most of them are just sort of plot devices and archetypes, I think, like as it goes.
And then there's the B plot with the other FBI agent on the ground who's convinced to get back in the game, get back into the field, and has to go find a snake expert and shoot him. And
yeah, played by Bobby Cannavale. Like he plays it with such gravitas. Like it's so funny. Like he's very, very serious about making sure that they get that antivenom and snake expert like nailed down, man. You would think he was in a different movie, honestly, from that performance. But so the crux of the episode here is camp or cringe. So I figured like what I wanted to do was like start with is there anything in the film that's cringe for you, right? And let's talk about that stuff first, get that out of the way. Make a little list if there's any particular moments or like things that stood out. And then we can give some examples, obviously, of like our favorite camp moments, because I think there's clearly some in this film. And then we can kind of come down on one side or the other. Is it camp or cringe, like overall? So I'm going to go reverse order this time. May, was there any cringe moments for you in this movie? And if so, like what?
I hate describing it. The scene where the mom, who is I don't know what accent she's supposed to have, but she clearly is like some kind of foreigner with the young baby, is like helping the boy and like has this weird olive oil like method of sucking the snake venom out. And the guys are like, oh, well, she can help me.
I got bit too.
Mostly just because it made, as a scientific person, it just made me mad.
Sure, yeah, I think it's debunked, right? You can't.
And
really
then also
ace.
like the casual sexism, of course, but that was just like, oh no, for me. Besides that, I think also just like the fact that, of course, like the two main guys got like the numbers of the flight attendants or whatever, despite Sean Jones basically just sitting there and looking scared for most of it. I'm like, what? I get being into Samuel L. Jackson, especially since he was kicking ass the whole time. Sean Jones just looked afraid and then was kind of useful at the end.
Is it because he got shot in the chest? Did that make him cool? Blah, blah.
She wasn't sure up until that moment, and then sealed the deal.
Yeah, the classic coupling, like, which is like a thing at the end of action movies, especially like of the 80s and 90s. Like you had to like have like the coupling of like the principals usually like that. Yeah, that definitely feels like a not great holdover of like the early action films for sure.
Yeah, and then besides that, it was just, I am fine accepting ridiculous premises and like non-realistic physics. It's fine. But I do like what if a movie can at least like stick to its story of like in the world of the movie what physics looks like and how it works, because they go from freaking out that 3G is going to shoot open the hull to also tearing a huge hole in the hull of the airplane, and it's fine. Or like all the stuff with the snakes and being aggressive and like just acting completely unsnake like. Even the pheromone explanation is like bullshit.
I feel like they're just like, what's the most plausible way we can just get what we want out of this plot, which is like, how do you make snakes go ape shit on like a plane? Yeah. How about Will? Did you have any cringe moments? Anything that like stood out as like, nah, it didn't work?
Yeah, I would say definitely sort of the sexualized aspect to these snakes. Like they are all supposed to be like really turned on, right? Like that's the whole like, and that to me I thought was just sort of weird. I mean, when they started going to town on those lays, I was like, all right, maybe I can kind of go with that. And also, why didn't you use that as your defense, guys? You had like a whole crate of those things that you found later. Why don't you just use that to keep them off? But the I think for me, it was when there was the heavyset lady who was asleep, who had the one snake that just sort of traveled up her dress, and she was like sleeping and dreaming, and was like enjoying that for whatever that
Moaning.
yeah, it must have felt like. And then she gets like bit on the eyeball when she wakes up and finds the snake, and I'm like, yeah, no. But again, that's sort of like that's the thing. There's so much like sexual stuff in the film anyway that's being joked about, like whether it's the couple hooking up in the bathroom or the dude getting his dick bit, that it's like, yeah, that's just sort of the mindset of whoever was writing the screenplay for this film was in. They're just like, how can we sex this movie up some more to make it campy?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Will, but you did remind me of the other thing, which is the fact that like when they're in the bathroom hooking up,
Yeah.
there was zero turbulence. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I can hardly use the toilet in a plain bathroom. All right, tell me how you're having comfortable sex in there.
Yeah, how is there all that space? Like, damn, airplane bathrooms in movies have a lot of like clearance everywhere. But yeah,
Very young.
It's
Sorry,
true.
continue.
no, you're
Yeah,
good.
they weren't
I
even
felt
in
like
first class either, like they were in
Right?
like coach. I'm like, no way.
I know.
Anyway.
But I think that was the other thing that maybe it was like maybe in some ways, because I know like the first Alien film was sexualized too. Like it was supposed to, and that was part of it. That was part of the fear behind the creature, it was this sort of sexual innuendo that in some of the scenes. And so it sort of felt like maybe they were parodying that to a certain extent. Watching this is another influence behind it. So that, I mean, I guess in some way that would, I guess, maybe make sense. But yeah, that for me was the cringe, was the sleeping lady. I thought, no. I mean, there's other stuff too, but that was probably the big one for me.
Nice. How about you, George? Any cringe moments for you?
Yeah, a lot. For me, it's the massive amounts of stereotypes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got the other black guy. It is the black people on the plane are the rapper and his entourage, right? I think every Asian person there knew some sort of martial arts, right? It was Eddie Kim was training in martial arts. The guy that was on the plane, is a professional kickboxer. You had like the ditzy girl, with the dog, and even the pilot, right? Like the person in power being a freaking creep to his subordinates, right? Or coworkers in a sense, right? Like it was even though all I saw was Todd Packer, but he was playing exactly the same guy, right? Like he was playing the same guy. It was like, yeah, a lot of pretty cringy stereotypes that were thrown in there. They kind of, I guess it was funny back then, but it's like really not now, like it's just, that's the kind of stuff that didn't age particularly well for me in the movie, because it just seems very cringy. It's like, wow, like really, like all of that. Yeah, those are probably the big ones for me. There was something else that I can't remember, but yeah, definitely the stereotypes.
Yeah, that's a good point, man.
Very fair. So sort of piggybacking off of that, I thought it was like the big cringe moment for me, or like one of them was Kenan Thompson's character like being able to like land a plane like off playing a PlayStation 2 game. Like not even like modern day like Microsoft Flight Simulator, right? Where like you could probably argue that like he probably would still crash, but at least it's like a little more realistic. Like
that writing made no
sense.
sense. It made no sense. There's no high score in like a flight simulator
No.
game. Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's like, tell me you don't play video games without telling me you don't play video games. Like, why not just have that character? Like, it would have been a touching moment if like, oh, like secretly, like this guy's dream is to like become a pilot someday, and he's been taking courses on his own. Like, that's how you do good character development in that moment, and like flesh him out like a little bit and make it make sense, right? Like, oh, I didn't know you like, you never ask about me, man. Like, you could do a little exchange like that, like, and it's still funny. And yeah, it's just like the video game thing was just kind of,
I remembered the other thing too. The other thing that stuck out, some
Yeah.
homophobia too, right? When the guy who got bit, the dude offered to suck the venom out, he's like, no, But when he sees this, I think it's the same guy when he sees the girl that was doing it to the kid, and then he
Yep.
was all for it too. So that was also really like weird. Sorry,
Nah.
Chris, it just
No,
popped
no.
into my
No, all good, man. Did you know, speaking of the kickboxing guy on the plane, did you recognize him from The Expanse? That's Prax, Dr. Prax from The Expanse.
No, yeah, that's right. I didn't.
Yeah, it was like his voice sounds really familiar, and like he kind of looks familiar, but like definitely the voice. And then yep, he's Dr. Prax, one of my favorite characters from the Expanse universe. But anyway, yeah, the plane landing thing though was like probably one of the worst. I don't know if there's anything else that was really egregious, because like a lot of that movie I'm willing to just go like it's just like, you know, like you could pick apart like the non-realism all day, but like it's called Snakes on a Plane. Like I feel like you know what you're getting into with the premise. Like I can, you know, I'm not about to start picking apart most of that stuff. Oh, the music video, that was the other thing at the end. Like the more we watched that, I was like, boy, like this is like, I was expecting it to be like Lonely Island-esque, maybe like
No,
be
I
funny.
didn't get through that. I didn't get
It
through
was
that.
fucking awful, dude. Like yeah,
I
watched
turned it off. I was
like,
like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
I regretted it. I was like, man, they should have got Lonely Island, because that would have been awesome. But yeah, those are my two big
It's also
ones.
confused because I thought that was supposed to be like 3G's music video or whatever, and he wasn't in it.
Oh, was it? Was that was supposed to be his
I thought that's like what I was expecting. I mean, when he wasn't in it, I was just like, well, this is confused. Like
3 cheese.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just the music video that like the sound or the song rather was featured in the movie at some point, maybe, or was supposed to. I don't know. But yeah, I was like watching a music video for a movie in the credits of the movie, which seemed very weird. And also, yeah, a bad one.
Yeah. I mean, like this era, I'm trying to think like it was kind of a thing. I feel like to have like stuff happen during like the movie that really comes to mind is like The Hangover, like when you had kind of the end credit sequence where it's like the photo album, right? Like where you get to see like all the events that you've heard about, like the little stills and stuff. But I'm trying to think if there was any other movies that did this, but I feel like it didn't work. I can't imagine it even worked back then. Like I think I probably would have been like, nah, this is stupid. Like, no, I'm good. Yeah. Anything you guys want to add in the cringe column before we go there on to our favorite camp moments? Because I feel like we'll be here all day if we list out all the camp moments. So instead, I think let's list out our favorite camp moments. So same order. May, I'll start with you. Do you have a favorite?
I got a list. So for me, the where the camp came in for me was the script, because like, I mean, 2010s were like this too, but 2000s I feel like was peak FBI, CSI, NCIS procedural kind of show slash movie. And like, yeah, this has a lot of action movie tropes, but also has a lot of the FBI flick like tropes. Anyway, so mostly along those lines, also some other like great pieces of dialogue. My three favorite lines were when the flight attendant is justifying how she knows to make an impromptu flamethrower and says that she went through a pyromaniac phase as a kid, and it's just a completely throwaway line. And it's just never questioned. I also loved when, I'm forgetting his name, but the guy that's on the ground like hunting down the snake like smuggler dude, he like jumps out of his vehicle and starts charging him with his gun, and someone shouts at him, "What are you doing?" And he calls back, "My job." It's just on point. And then I also love that someone actually said, "Wow, that's going to leave a mark" after one of the snake bites. It's very I guess like Joss Whedon-y kind of dialogue in a lot of ways. And I like that they leaned into it. That was the most camp part for me.
Amazing. Yeah, those are definitely some awesome moments, especially like the FBI. Like it's just something about the way that he approached that, where he was like, and I'm playing this 100% straight. Like I want people to believe that I take this very seriously. Yeah. How about you, Will?
Favorite moment of camp in this film, man. I mean, kind of piggybacking off that for the dialogue, I mean, the classic line, like, like tired of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane, like, that was pretty much it. That's like I what else that really came to mind? I guess it was like the fact that it was all these ridiculous types of snakes all like thrown in together that would somehow, I guess the idea was like, it doesn't matter what breed they are, they're all just go and do their thing and murder everybody on this plane, and they all just seem to, and they do attack each other a little bit, but it's like they all just sort of like spread everywhere and find their way into every control console. And then suddenly it's like, and you think it's bad enough, wait for the big one to come when everybody's trying to get up into first class, and like that whole just the scene where they're trying to climb up there, and the big snake breaks through the glass and falls into the cabin area, and then the staircase collapses, and you get these shots as people are either getting trampled, and like one guy gets a heel from a lady who's climbing over him, like jabbed into his ear, and somebody else gets like a piece of debris stabbed into their neck. And it's like all this kind of like what's been mentioned before, where it's like you don't really feel invested in the characters to us. I mean, some of them you might care for. Like I actually felt kind of bad that like the honeymooners died, like the guy who was like really OCD about everything. I was like, oh man, and he didn't make it. I was kind of thinking that maybe he would. I mean, granted, most people aren't going to make it out of this, but I was kind of rooting for him. Like, yeah, I mean, even he knew something weird was going on, and but I mean, obviously, he's the one guy who thinks everything is is off.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and so I think that for me, it was like all the over the top mutilation or attack, snake attacks, that was, and just sort of like you're not really like, you don't feel bad, it's just sort of like you're going with it. Oh no, somebody else died, and I unfortunately too, for the like, I feel like the dog in the film, which we haven't talked about, is also used as like a comedic thing in its own death, when everybody's like, like trying to get away, and the one like asshole British guy who's on the plane throws the dog to try and get the giant snake to go after it, right before the giant snake also crushes and eats him. But karma is good, but at the same time, you're just like, the dog is sort of treated as like a joke for another death that happens in the film. And so it's like, oh, that's kind of rough. So I think that sort of just not really invested in the characters, not really feeling like death is an issue. There's no impact to it. It's just sort of like what you're signing up for with it. I feel like that's very much a sign of the campiness of the film.
Yeah, there's some like Raimi-esque violence in there for sure. Like
Mhm.
those like almost Three Stooges kind of like gags, but like hyper violent, like turned up to like 11 for sure. Yeah, like they went far and beyond, like above and beyond like what you needed to do, like for like how a snake could get, like it could have just been people getting bitten, but like woof, boy, they dial it up to crazy levels at times. The one in the eye, like there's like stuff like that where you're like, this is just to make everybody squirm and like kind of like laugh uncomfortably, basically, stuff like that. All right, George, how about you? Do you have a favorite moment of camp?
I think it was just the deaths in general, right? That's the part that makes me think like this movie's just supposed to be fun, right? Because when you've got like a plane that, I mean, the plane wasn't entirely full, but there's a bunch of disposable characters on that plane, right? That's when that's what makes this movie fun for me, right? Like it's not a horror movie, but in those type of movies, like the deaths are the things that stand out. But here, you're gonna kill off like more than half of the people that are on this plane. So you can do it in all kinds of crazy ways to make it fun and make that like the interesting part, right? Like you talk about the guy that got bitten in the dick, and all those kinds of crazy deaths. Like you can do that when you have this amount of disposable characters that nobody cares about, so that you could always laugh or cringe or like feel some kind of way in response to the deaths. And that's the part that I thought was fun, even though some of the deaths are a little bit, well, they're all pretty much over the top and uncomfortable, but like that's the part of the movie that I guess was fun, seeing all the different ways that these snakes are gonna like, mess with these people. And then also the amount of things that don't make any sense whatsoever on the movie makes me think it has to be intentional, right? Like these crazy snakes can rip apart circuit boards in a very strategic manner, but God forbid you put a couple pieces of luggage and they can't get through that. That holds them off for a bit. Or the massive snake that you mentioned, like what was that thing doing? Up into the first half of the movie, it was just hanging out and then decides to join the fray. Like that was crazy. And there's also like a few things that I feel like whoever wrote the movie just wanted to have in there and forced it. Like I found it really stupid that after the first pilot dies, right, that they would leave, and then after the second one is attacked, that they would leave him unattended by himself in there. Like I don't understand that. Like you already lost one pilot because snakes got in there. You already got bit, and then we're just gonna leave the dude in there to the point that like we don't realize he's dead until the plane's like heading down. Like that was just so dumb. But the director or the writer definitely wanted a passenger to land this plane to put this movie over the top, and was going to find a way to make that happen, because that made no sense. You may as well have just killed them both, at the same time.
My favorite moment, like hands down on this rewatch, especially, was like, so as they're have landed safely, they're deplaning. Sean is attacked, like bitten in the chest by a snake. We later find out like it's fine because he has a bulletproof vest, which like presumably saves him from the snake by, instead of like just like ripping off the snake or like doing anything else, Samuel L. Jackson shoots him in the chest, which seems like the most irresponsible but like cool way, I guess, to deal with a snake. Like he's just totally fine with that, like as a way to deal with the situation. So I love that. I was like, this is so fucking stupid and awesome that that's how you would deal with that. And then the snake battering rams, like I know that it's not like the snakes like really like designed that moment or made that happen, but it's just a really funny visual image of a bunch of snakes like fucking like sounding the charge and battering through the luggage case on like the food carts, like twice, not once but twice. Like it's just amazing. To May's point, the physics are very inconsistent, and that only happened when like the drama was needed. Like that could have happened at any given time, but no, it's like we needed to, this has to be a very specific moment that both of these things are going to come careening through here. So yeah, I think both of those are great. And I think like overall, like this movie reminded me a lot of like a slasher movie, and that like you've got again tons of stereotypes and archetypes like being used. The body count is super high, and like all the characters for the most part are disposable, and you have kind of really it's just a playground for creative deaths, right? Like you have the premise and the danger, and then it's just going to be like how do you want to like kill and maim these people in creative and unique ways. So
more just a side note, I'm surprised that when they landed the plane, they actually didn't like crash the plane. Because I feel like in a lot of even like movies where they are serious about having threats that take place on an airplane, usually the ending to some degree, there's some sort of damage that happens when they land it. So I almost felt like I was expecting something else to happen, or like another snake to pop out at the last second, besides the one that gets the guy on the chest with the bulletproof vest. I felt like just there was going to be some other threat, and it was like, no, actually, we landed it pretty well. So,
yeah.
And also, fuck you, Randy. He's my brother, and I say fuck him. And that was that what Dude Man said after he landed the plane. I think that line, and probably also the what was it? Sam Jackson said something like, "Turn this motherfucker left, Troy." And when they finally get it down, he wants to pull it in. Those two
turns
lines.
on a dime. It turns on a dime because that's how planes work too. It's just like
that's right. Yeah, you can drift those things apparently. So yeah, awesome.
I do feel like we should just address the fact that the largest plot hole of all is why someone who's trying to get rid of a witness would do it by killing dozens of people and racking up a bunch of murder charges.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I think like it's probably not something they thought too hard about or cared about.
Clearly, how do we get snakes on a plane? Find a good reason.
Yeah,
we need to just find any reason.
I definitely started with that.
Eddie Kim goes like, "Oh, I've exhausted all other options, and this is the only one. Like, what were the other options, right? Like something along those lines. Like I had to resort to this because I don't have any other. Like, what else were you considering? What were you brainstorming before you arrived at this one? Like
They thought about spiders and decided that they'd get stuck in the air filters. So obviously they had to go with snakes.
Mhm. We can't put a bomb on the plane because that's not going to work. So no.
Let's have us a quick vote, shall we? Like camp or cringe. So I'm now going to go back down and reverse the order once again. So George, I'm starting with you as the guest of honor. Camp or cringe?
I'm gonna go with cringe.
Cringe. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to like give like a 15-second?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with cringe because I think it's because I'm watching it now. And so I have to factor in my mindset right now. And I would not really recommend that movie to anybody like now, this is something that if I had watched it back then, I'd be like, wow, I could look back on it and be like, wow, that was a pretty stupid movie. That was fun back then. I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy watching this now because it was entertaining, but yeah, I think it was just cringy. And even the stuff that was fun about it was just dumb and silly. But yeah, I don't know that I'd recommend that movie to someone right now to go watch now.
Fair play.
But I don't regret watching it at the same time, and like
yeah,
I'm proud of that.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying for sure. Will, how about you?
I'm going to have to lock in for camp. I think there's definitely there's plenty of cringy moments that we have gone over. I think overall for me, it pushes more into the camp territory. Just knowing that it's not taking itself seriously, I can cut it a little bit more slack for some of the, I guess the things that by any other standard, like if this was supposed to be like a serious movie, then the things that would bother me about it, whether it's the stereotypes, the sexism, or just like the gratuitous deaths, would have more of an impact for me. But because it is not taking itself seriously, because it is over the top, I feel like in a lot of ways that's adding to that. And so I would go with camp.
All right. May.
I'm swinging the vote back the other way. My vote is cringe as well, actually.
Nice.
It's self-aware. The humor feels very like of the time period, like very similar. I mean, it's more violent, obviously, but the humor is very similar to like Zoolander or Anchorman or like that kind of stuff, and it just doesn't age well, just as a kind of comedy. And even if it's self-aware, I just don't think it nails the landing, to put in an airplane pun.
You know what I kind of like compared it to, like the scary movies.
Yeah.
Like that's what it kind of felt like. Like those were hilarious back then as a kid. Probably not so funny right now. That's kind of how I see this one.
I'd agree. And like I did appreciate the moments where it did feel like it was kind of parodying action genre and like FBI procedurals and stuff like that. But it felt like it was trying to do too many things at once and wasn't quite sure if it was serious or what it was joking about. So yeah, cringe for me. But like George said, I'm also glad that I've seen it now so I can relate.
So I'm gonna cheat a little bit here. I'm gonna call this a cramp. Like
what?
That sounds worse than either, Chris.
It's cramp. It's cringy camp, and like, so I guess I would, if I had to like pick one or the other, which we do. I'm gonna fall into the camp category, but like with the caveat that I don't think it's like good camp or like fully successful camp. I think that like it gets the camp vote just because there is that self-awareness and there is sort of like the gratuitous over the topness, but I would recommend so many other movies above this, like as like a party watch, right? Like a group watch. And I don't think it leaned into the premise enough, like in my opinion. Like we talked about some of like the bits that feel a little bit out of left field, where like it is like too serious, and I think that kind of drags it down a little bit. I think you could cut that entire subplot with the antivenom and the agent on the ground completely from the movie, and it wouldn't suffer at all. Like, who cares? Like, these people are dead. Like, if you're gonna buy that there's like vipers that are just attacking people relentlessly on a plane, like why do you really care what happens to them? You know what I mean? Like they've all just been there for your entertainment for 2 hours anyway. So but yeah, like so it's camp with like a little caveat. So we technically have like a tie, I guess, for camp or cringe.
It sound like 2.5 votes for cringe and 1.5 for camp.
That's what
yeah,
I
that's
heard.
true.
Yeah,
That's what that
that's
sounds
true.
like to me.
That's
And
true.
you know what I made? This is your first time watching it, also.
Yes.
You see, I think it's really telling that the two people
The
that are
nostalgia
watching
factor.
it are
Yeah.
watching it for the first time now are
Mhm.
in the cringe camp, I guess. The
Cringe
people who have
camp.
seen it before.
Hey.
You're like, you
Yeah,
guys are
right.
at camp cringe. We're in the cringe camp. We are not the same.
Oh, I'm tweeting that later.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, it's unsuccessful. Again, like I think there is some nostalgia rose colored glasses. I've talked about the circumstances in which I saw this and well too, but it has some redeeming qualities. But yeah, there's better examples of this. Hopefully when we get to my other pick, which I'm not gonna name, that one, like well, I don't want to even say because somebody might guess what it is. It has elements to it that are like way more over the top than anything in this that I feel like might place it a little more firmly in the other. But we'll see when we get to it. All right, so I guess technically, like by half a point, this is cringe. So I'll find some kind of graphic to put here, and we'll label it cringe, which I believe is our second cringe in the camper cringe debate here.
It
of course,
is.
the other being
It's joining two of a kind
of a
and
kind.
infamy.
Oof, yeah.
The movie that I just want to remind our audience members once again that you cannot legally rent digitally anywhere. That's how fucking hard that movie is to find. Whatever.
That's how
believe
much
it.
we care. That's how much we care. Is we found this movie to talk about.
We're bringing you the deep cuts, all right?
Did we do it legally? I'm going to plead the fifth. Okay, so who is ready for a little game to kind of wind things down? Awesome. All right. So May, did you have a name for your Letterboxd review game before? Did we ever like christen that? If we didn't, that's okay.
I think I don't think we like had a name for it. I just called it like 1-star reviews or
One-star reviews,
review
yep.
trivia or
Yep.
I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll have to like TBD on that. Like we'll figure out a name, but I love that game so much I decided to make a new round of that. So for our
Okay.
audience listeners and for George, what I've done is I've picked 5 films and I've selected 3 1-star reviews for each film. The first review that I give you is going to be a little more like opaque, and then as we get to the third one, it's usually like a dead giveaway on like what the movie is, and the second one's kind of in between. Okay, so these are real reviews from real users from Letterboxd, which is a social media film review platform, which is really cool. We have an account on there, I believe, that we should start using. I know we each have individual accounts on there as well. So any questions?
Chris, I just remembered I got the idea from a TikTok with people doing this with books. So they call it 1-star review, guess who?
There you go. 1-star review, guess who? Amazing. We'll have to see if we can track down and give credit to that TikTok. But thank you for the idea, whomever you are. And I do have a little bonus in here. If there's a theme for all 5 of these films, if you can guess the theme by the end, and I'll even be willing to give you a hint, I'll give you some bonus points. Okay. So here we go. Your first film, this is from Extro77, who says pretentious and overlong, boldly includes a 4th act for some reason. Most people have tragically already seen this. If you haven't, I'd stay far away. So pretentious and overlong boldly includes a 4th act for some reason. Most people have tragically already seen this. If you haven't, I'd stay far away.
Is it Lord of the Rings, Return of the King?
It's not that. It's not a bad guess.
I got nothing.
You just throw a Hail Mary out.
That was gonna be mine.
Okay. Okay.
Nice. Nice.
Just by how long it is. I'm just thinking the longest movies.
No, I totally not a bad guess given it. So I picked this next one because it's a little nuts. But I love this. So Exorcist fan on Letterboxd says, this film is about a pasty young man who is relentlessly bullied by a king who dresses like a bird. In real life, bullying someone for their complexion is wrong, but in the film, it is hilarious. The king's leather bird costume is shiny and disgusting because he is a sicko who hates the feeble. I think the bird mask is a metaphor for Elvis. Don't watch this movie if you are pale. I was like, I'm putting that in. I'm totally putting that in.
God, I'm trying to remember.
The Birdman?
Yeah, the Michael Keaton movie, right? No,
No, it's
Okay.
not.
that's what I just thought. Bird
Right.
costume. The first thing that came to mind.
Wait.
Bullying
Is it Sesame Street?
Bullying a pasty child.
It's about a pasty young man who's relentlessly bullied by a king who dresses like a bird. Not how I would choose to describe this movie, but if you kind of stretch your imagination a bit.
Got it.
Don't read what this guy's saying is completely literal. Like I would think like
I
a
mean,
little
what else do
broader.
we got?
Okay.
That's the fact that it's long and has 4 acts.
Just like a bird.
Yeah. So final clue. Never understood why people like this movie or think it's a good interpretation of the Joker.
Oh. So wait, so that was hold on. So we're talking about The Dark Knight? Is that
That's it. It's the
All
Dark Knight. So that's 1 point for Will.
nice?
So going back to it's about a pasty young man who is relentlessly bullied by a king who dresses like a bird. Sorry, I just was like, this person's a little unhinged, so I'm including this. And sorry, it was Think 004 for that last one. So nice job. Well,
I
All
would
right,
not
new
have gotten
film.
that.
well, the final clue is always a giveaway, right? So
Yeah.
here we go. Final clue, or sorry, not final clue. New movie, first clue. Long and slow, like a painful death.
Oh god, so many. Well, I'm just gonna throw one out there just because, even though I love this movie. 2001: A Space Odyssey.
It's not that one.
Avatar.
Ooh.
Not that one either.
Which Avatar?
The first.
The blue
one.
people?
The James Cameron movie.
The blue
Yeah.
people one or the Airbender?
Yeah.
And that was from Lancho Mateo. All right. So next one from just simply D, the letter D. Absolutely dislike this. Nothing in this movie makes sense, and there's nothing to get from it. Can't see what everyone else sees about this movie. Felt like a fever dream. And also, I hate sci-fi. Smiley emoji.
I kind
What
of
do
knew
you
it
say?
was sci-fi just based on the length. Sorry, what did you say, George?
No. That would have further solidified my Avatar guess.
I feel like the movie with Brad Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones would fit into this, but I don't remember the name of that film that came out that was sci-fi. It was very long, and I feel I feel like it would fit in this category. I would actually agree if it is that film, but I wish I could remember the name of it. But I'm not going to cheat and look it up. So, oh man,
All right. Final
The
clue.
original
Wait.
Dune.
I'm gonna go with the guess. I'll go with
Okay.
the Alien.
It's not Alien.
Ooh,
Good guess.
ooh.
I said
I
the
like it.
original Dune.
It's
Oh.
not the original Dune.
Ah,
And finally, from MBB, we have I'm sorry, I just really couldn't get myself to like or enjoy this movie. It's too long, barely any dialogue, and I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on until the end of the movie. I love sci-fi movies and shows. The vibe of this reminded me of the show Altered Carbon. I love Altered Carbon
Ooh.
so much, and it was the sole reason why I love and enjoy sci-fi movies. Ryan Gosling, as always, is so sexy in this movie. So that was the only thing that was keeping me
Blade
entertained.
Runner 20 whatever.
2049.
I'll give it to George. Yes, that's,
Yeah,
that's
he had
the
it.
one.
He knew. Yeah, he knew.
Yes. Yeah,
The
for
second
one.
one, Blade Runner 2.
Nice.
Yep. It is indeed Blade Runner 2049.
Yep.
I kind of agree. Sorry.
I love that movie so much.
Ouch.
But,
Yeah.
here we go. New film altogether. From Kyecart, Kyecart. 2-hour-long commercial for birth control.
Oh man.
It's not really very specific, but
Grown-ups.
no.
Back to the Future.
Nope.
Hey. Oh, nice. Yes. Oh, that's amazing.
2-hour-long commercial.
That deserves like a bonus point just because.
All right. Next clue. Rip off of The Last of Us. Overrated.
So it's got to be relatively new. Rip off. I can't, and I don't remember the name, but there was a movie with Viggo Mortensen. I think it was his daughter. It was like, yeah, it was a post.
The Road.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that you're correct in the movie title, but that's not the one for this one. All right. All right. Final clue. This movie, this is from Jess. This movie is so boring and bad. Wolverine dies to an effing tree. Come on, X-Men Origins Wolverine was so
Logan?
much better. Who said it first?
Logan.
Who said it
Uh,
first?
Will was
I might.
it?
I was
Well,
gonna say
okay.
I don't know. I didn't hear, but I might not have. So
Yeah, I didn't even finish saying it before he
Yeah, it is
dies to a
Logan.
tree.
Wolverine Origins was much better. It had Gambit in it.
I am Groot.
Wolverine Origins was much better.
Well, these are not really like if you haven't been able to tell by now, like
yeah.
people that have popular opinions on most of these
Wolverine
movies, like,
Oranges was the one that had leaked like ahead of time, right? Everybody watched it. Like, was
that
that the
was the one
one?
that had the original Deadpool, like
Oh, yeah,
Ryan,
yeah, yeah.
like where he's like got the
All
pucker
jacked
face
up.
and stuff. Yeah.
That's
okay.
hilarious.
2 films to go right now. It is Will with 2 points and George with a point. Here is your next film. They didn't need to act. Isn't this how white men normally behave?
Wolf on Wall Street.
That is correct. For
Oh,
3 points.
shit. Damn.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Wow.
Damn.
Good
On the
job,
board.
man.
Yeah, with the sucker
Firmly
punch.
on the board. The
That was
other
a
2
joke
clues.
answer.
You nailed it. The other 2 reviews. So we had
Wow.
Jack William Varl said, I don't think I've ever enjoyed a movie less in my life. Everything about it is vile and it felt celebratory rather than critical. The ship scene was exhilarating, which saves it from a 0 out of 10. Which is funny because there's only 5 stars on this platform. But finally, David said, too much sex, orgies, and nudity. I wouldn't mind too much normally, but this film made me see Jonah Hill's penis, and I can't forgive it for that. So there you have it. All right. So
Nice.
1
Good
point
job,
each
man.
for Will and George, and May has 3. So comes down to this one.
Thought
What
Will
are the
had
movies? What are the movies so far? It's
So we
Dark Knight?
had The Dark Knight, we had Blade Runner 2049,
Oh.
Mhm.
Logan, and Wolf of Wall Street. I'll give you a little hint if you guys get stuck on the theme, which it's,
Yeah, I was looking at the theme, but 3 animals, but I got nothing on Blade Runner.
All right, finally, here we go. First clue of the final film. All the characters are insufferable, and I found it so incredibly hard to sympathize with the lead about anything. She is so cringy. I struggled to get through the whole movie. Too many incredibly privileged, sad white girl movies around these days.
Lady Bird.
Oh,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Ah,
Oh my
man.
god. May, wow.
All right, come back.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you've been giving better first clues.
Mhm.
It's not just
Well-
like this movie was long.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because you have to sift through pages and pages. Like, yeah.
Nice.
The other two, that was from Bat Dog, from Liv Carlone. So this movie made me want to drop a toaster in my bathtub. That bitch really talks to her mom like that. And then from Mimi, maybe it's because my mom compared our relationship to the mother-daughter one in the movie because it was genuinely boring, or because of Timothy Chalamet, but I hated it. So there you
Nice.
have it.
Nice.
Well done, May. 6 points.
Yeah,
Like,
seriously.
sound victory. Excellent job. I tell you what, I will make the bonus for 5 points so you guys could at least tie May, and then we could extend it with a tiebreaker if you can tell me the
Ooh.
theme without a hint. If I have to give you a hint, we'll say it's 3 points, and it'll be a tiebreaker for potentially for Will and George.
So is the theme just because I feel like George already mentioned it, right? That
No, I
it's-
mean, I
oh,
thought
his was not
animals. Yeah, but it only covers 4 of them.
Does it only cover 4?
Blade Runner, I don't see an animal there.
They had an animal. in
No,
Blade
I
Runner.
mean, like I guess in the title or in the.
Oh,
Yeah,
is that so? Is
Wolverine-
that basically off of the title itself? Is the
I don't
theme,
know.
or is it with
I
the
don't know.
variant?
It's something to do with the films. It doesn't have to be just
Oh,
like
okay,
it's
okay.
not. Yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
Does each movie have a duo?
It's not it,
Man.
but it's not a
Um,
bad guess because honestly, I think that would fit for a lot of these, but no. Ready for a hint?
There's an
right.
important kid in every movie. I haven't seen Wolf of Wall Street, so I couldn't speak to that.
no important kids there.
Yeah.
All right. Here's your hint. It has to do with the directors of the films.
I thought that, but the Dark Knight is not the same director as it's Scorsese in Wolf of Wall Street.
They all auteurs.
I mean, you can make
They
that
all have a
argument,
certain
certainly.
look.
It's
Mm.
if I think was it James Mangold for Logan?
That's correct.
Can't remember who did Lady Bird.
It's a alliterative name. I'll give you that hint for her. Also an acronym for good games.
All
Is that
Academy
Greta
Award
Gerwig?
winners,
That might technically be true. I'd have to look, but that's not what the-
Academy Award winning directors.
All right. Shall I reveal the theme?
Yes, please.
I'm not gonna get it.
All of these directors have hotly anticipated films that are in like the top 10 anticipated movies of 2023. So well done, May. You absolutely crushed it. And thanks again for the idea. Like, this was fun. I actually took screen captures like of the review, so I'm gonna put them into like the edit.
You
When I
should.
edit
You
this
should.
episode.
Good game. GG's. Greta Gerwig.
Greta Gerwig.
The pasty kid.
Gets bullied by a man who dresses up like a bird. Oh, good stuff. All right, well, let's have our next film, shall we? And we will skedaddle. So I'm shuffling the deck,
Bum, ba-da-dum, 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 bum, bum.
and here we go. Let's see what our next film is. Ooh, it is A Fade to Black. Let me go to my little cheat sheet and see what that is. So to kind of recap, Fade to Black, the definition is analyze how the final scene of a film leaves a lasting impression long after the credits roll. And this is number 3, which is quite appropriate because it is The Dark Knight. Gordon's VO. So Gordon's voiceover in The Dark Knight. Also appropriate because it's celebrating its anniversary this weekend. This was the weekend it came out back in, I think, 2007? Sound right? Yeah. Okay,
Generally,
14
yeah,
years.
probably around there. Yeah.
So I will correct myself in the edit if I'm wrong, but I think it's the 15th anniversary of Dark Knight. So good pick. That's what we'll be talking
Sweet.
about on next week's episode. Before we skedaddle, George, would you like to plug anything, sir?
No, I don't got anything going on right now.
Well, you can find us at ScreenQuest Pod on Twitter, on social media. Please engage with us. Take part in our Friday film polls. Comment on, do you think Snakes on a Plane is camp or cringe? Let us know. And as always, we really do appreciate your support. Please give us a like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Even if you just tell one friend about the show, it's a big, big help. So thank you for that. And until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.